In today's video, we have some updates on a potential big trade between the Ottawa Senators and the Arizona Coyotes involving Jacob Chychrun. We now know some of the pieces the Coyotes are looking for, plus we have some trade talk around the Vancouver Canucks, some updates on some training camp rosters out of the Rangers, Calgary, some injury updates, and some interesting comments from a few players including Seth Jones and Johnny Gaudreau. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade talk to take a look at here today. First up, another injury update as training camps are a few days along now. We do have word that Joonas Korpisalo is going to be out indefinitely. So obviously in the Columbus goaltending situation, that'll give more of an opportunity for Tarasov to play at the NHL level behind Elvis Merzlikins. Of course, Korpisalo did have a pretty significant hip surgery in the offseason, and he's going to be out indefinitely now, so we don't know exactly when he's going to be able to make that full-time return. As I mentioned as well, we have a couple of teams already announcing some cuts out of training camp. Mostly we have junior players being cut at this point. The Rangers have trimmed their training camp roster by 4, sending 4 players back to junior, including Sam Alfano, Max Barbashev, Jaden Grubel, and Brian McConnell-Barker. The Calgary Flames have also reduced their training camp roster as well. Obviously, they've released 4 players from an amateur tryout, and they've also sent back Jack Beck, Cole Huskins, Cole Jordan, and Cameron Wynot back to their respective junior clubs as well. The Calgary Flames are also working on an extension for Mackenzie Weegar. We'll have to see where that goes. We know he's going to be looking for a substantial raise. He's been on a pretty team-friendly contract and really outplayed it the last few years. So to get him locked up long-term is not going to come cheap, but they're certainly working to try to keep him in the fold. I know he even made a comment himself that they were indeed having conversations, and he said they'd see where things went. So we'll see. I know Flames in the training camp situation with them as well. Sonny Milano is certainly getting an ample opportunity to play in a top 6 role right now. He's been getting some top 6 minutes, so we'll see where things go. They're still waiting for a few players to join training camp that were dealing with a few minor injuries and stuff like Andrew Mangiapane. But Milano might have himself a pretty good opportunity if he can play well and secure himself a spot with the Calgary Flames. Now, speaking of Calgary, even though he's not there any longer, longtime Flame and one of the top free agents who switched teams this year, Johnny Gaudreau, was asked by Columbus media about his, obviously about how he felt, I guess you could say, about things and how they ended in Calgary, and asked if they was happy that the Calgary Flames, after losing him and having to trade Matthew Tkachuk, if he was happy that they were able to kind of land on their feet and rebound well, make some good moves, and that the team is still in pretty good shape. And his comments might, I don't know, I guess it depends on how you look at it, might surprise some. But essentially, he said that he loved Calgary, still has a great love for the city. But basically, the minute he signed in Columbus, he doesn't care at all about the Calgary Flames as a hockey club and doesn't really make any difference to him what they did for moves whatsoever. I mean, I know some might have wanted him to say that, yes, it's nice to see, obviously, with me departing and, them trading Tkachuk. It's good to see that they're still going to be a competitive team or something to that effect. I don't know. I mean, I really don't expect him to go down that road, especially now that he's with another team. All the teams or players' comments are going to be, about that affiliation, and that, obviously the care is going to be for his current club. But I guess it's an interesting choice of words for him to say that he really didn't care at all about the team. He's just only, he thinks he'll miss the city, and he loved the Calgary, city and everything like that. But anyway, interesting comments nonetheless, at least in my opinion. Seth Jones obviously was also asked some tough questions too. A lot of these players are doing media now that we're a few days into camp. Jones asked about basically his thoughts on how things have transpired in Chicago since he was traded there. And he didn't mince his words at all. He certainly said that he was frustrated, and it was certainly not what he had in mind when he first, got traded there and signed that long-term mega extension. But he said it is what it is, and he's going to be patient and doesn't have any regrets. But I think the Blackhawks, at least the new people in charge there, probably do have regrets as well. I mean, obviously, they really, by the looks of things, really want to strip this thing down to the bare bones, and they're looking at a 5+ year rebuild, according to GM Kyle Davidson. So certainly, to have a big-time contract like Seth Jones on the books, it's not really ideal for them. And of course, Jones is looking around going, since I've gotten here, anybody with talent, or a lot of them at least, have been moved out. He's seen DeBrincat go and Strome go and, Kirby Dach and all these guys get moved. And of course, Taves and Kane are in the final year of their contracts. And I think it's fair to say that they more than likely don't come back next year. We suspect that there's a good chance they'll be traded sometime around the deadline. Even if they're not, I can't see Chicago wanting to re-sign them. They're going to want to go in a different direction. So he knows that their time is limited with the Blackhawks organization, and he's basically looking around going, where did everybody go? Like, everybody's gone, and it's going to be tough. And to be honest, I really don't think the Blackhawks really would have many opportunities to move Seth Jones. If he decided to say, you know what, this isn't what I signed up for, and I'd be very interested in being traded, I really don't know where in the heck they would try to send Seth Jones. Obviously, in a couple of years' time, when we get a little further into this contract and we see a bigger jump in salary cap, which is expected probably in about 2 years, then maybe at that point it might be possible, because teams will have a lot more cap space, and obviously there won't be quite so much money in term left in his contract. So if things go well for him, maybe at that point, if he wants to, maybe he could be moved. But I don't know if that Seth Jones contract, being so early into it, is really tradable. I guess anybody can say that anything's tradable technically, but the odds of it happening, probably pretty darn slim. Now, of course, we saw our first bit of preseason hockey earlier with the Maple Leafs beating the Senators 4-1. The Sens scored the first goal in the first period, and the Maple Leafs responded with a much better second and scored 3 goals. The fourth goal was an empty netter, so it was basically a 3-1 game. Obviously, the Senators had a good start, but a pretty even game for the most part, except for a few defensive miscues early by the Senators. I thought for the Sens that Jake Sanderson, being in his first pro game of any kind, looked really, really good. Broke up a Mitch Marner 2-on-1. Looked really just poised up there. He took a couple penalties, but he played hard. I don't think anybody have any issues with that. But just a guy who could do a lot of things, defend it well, rush the puck well, looked good on the power play when he had an opportunity. So overall, I think Sens have a lot to be excited about when it comes to Jake Sanderson. Of course, Alex Steeves ended up scoring 2 goals for the Leafs, so certainly doing his part to make an impression during training camp in the preseason. Dennis Malgin, I thought, looked really good as well. He played a lot with Willie Nylander, and they did pretty well. He ended up scoring a goal, and overall, I thought they had a pretty solid game. I think it's probably fair to say, looking at the rosters, that the Leaf roster was a little bit deeper. I mean, the Sens did have one of their top lines out there with Stützle, Giroux, and Alex DeBrincat, which they did score the only goal for the team, but certainly need some time to get their chemistry together. The 3 players, none of them have played together before, so I don't think we want to put a whole lot of stock into that right now. But it was, the one thing was apparent from the, I guess, the not so good standpoint from Ottawa, is that Nikita Zaitsev is still no better, which really shouldn't be any shocker. I thought he had a decent first period, but then after that, he was on the ice, I think, for almost all the goals and just looked lost, which was the big part of the problem last year. So, to be honest, if they had their full decor together, it'd be better. But we all know that that's still the weak point of that team. And the Sens are certainly looking for help on the blue line, which is what we're going to kind of talk about here today, as well as the Sens are still very much linked to Jacob Chychrun. I mean, Elliot Friedman talked about it on the game's intermission. There's also been more comments from Darren Dreger on TSN 1200 radio after getting ready, because there's also playing a second preseason game tonight. They have their squad split in 2, so we're going to see a different group of Leafs and Senators. It's actually going on right now as I record this. Be early in the first period. No goals to report on as of yet, but it was just in a minute or 2 in when I started to record here. But essentially, Friedman said that the big thing here is that the Sens are probably closer than anybody to making a deal, and by far the heaviest interest. But one thing he said that the Coyotes really wanted back, that the Sens are reluctant on, which is a big holdup here, is they were very interested in Shane Pinto. Pinto's definitely a prospect that Ottawa appears to have no interest in moving. They see him as a big part of their future. I mean, obviously, he's right up there with behind Stützle and Norris, and they would be a really top center. I think he'll challenge for top 6 center minutes down the road. They're starting him as the number 3 guy, pretty good in both ends of the ice, and definitely a real good player that they don't want to part with. As much as they'd like to have Chychrun, Pinto appears to not be a player that they want to move, but it might be something that they might not have a choice to do. If they really want Chychrun that bad, they might have to do it. But if I was Ottawa, I would be reluctant. It's pretty apparent still that they definitely need another blue liner to really balance things out and to defend better. There's no doubt about that. That's certainly no big surprise. And like I said, coming out of today's early preseason game, really not a shocker. They didn't even have their top pair of Chabot and Zub in that lineup. So yes, the Sens D could have been better. And even when they get everybody together and get down to the main group for the regular season, that is going to be the area that's focused on. And if all the NHL insiders continue to talk that the way they are about the Senators, chasing a defenseman, and Chychrun being that guy, like there's a major connection there. We've heard the comments from Chychrun early season, early training camp out of Arizona that he wants a trade, and was basically looked like a sad lost puppy, essentially, that he doesn't really want to be there, but he'll be a good pro and get through it until something happens. So we will see where this goes. But again, big idea here that the price tag is high, and it's really high. Like, it was reported before they wanted 2 first-round picks, and a prospect or two. Like, so if they want at least 1 first-rounder, Shane Pinto, and probably either a goalie prospect or a defense prospect, like I just, it's getting to be a little bit much, especially if they want 2 picks in there. Like, I don't know that that's something Ottawa should do. Now, the Vancouver Canucks are also been linked to Ethan Bear, and I mentioned the Sens have been kind of linked to him as well, according to Bruce Garriock before, that they might be a guy they kind of pivot to if the Chychrun stuff doesn't progress. But certainly, the Rick Dollywall is reporting that the Vancouver Canucks, as of a couple of weeks ago, had heavy interest in Ethan Bear, and there was a lot of people thought they were going to try to push to get a trade done, but nothing has been materialized, and all has been relatively quiet. In that, at this point, they still very much have a right-shot defenseman very much high on their wish list and radar, but things have been quiet with Bear, so they're not quite sure if that's still something that they're looking to do, and it's just a matter of making it work, or if they're maybe looking at other options. I know, speaking of Vancouver, Nils Hoglander was a player that a lot of people were kind of concerned or unsure of, but he's looked real good in camp and has been a standout player, so I don't think that Canuck fans should really be nervous about him. Looks like he did a lot of good work in the offseason and appears to be ready, and Kuzmenko has been impressing as well in the brief amount of time so far in training camp, so it'll be interesting to see those guys get into some game action here soon to see how things match up. But the big story for today is the Sens and needing some D. Chychrun's still very much on their radar. Dreger and Friedman both reporting that they feel like the Senators are going to probably keep pushing to find a way to get this done. I just don't know about moving Shane Pinto. If that's what the Coyotes want, I would pump the brakes and see if you can't figure out something else. Either a different package for Chychrun or go a different direction and get another defenseman. But let me know what you think down there. If you're Ottawa, would you consider doing that deal? If it's going to take Pinto, a first, and probably 1 or 2 other assets, that just seems like a lot. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We'll talk about it further. If you're new to the channel, though, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.